Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing West Side Story, the 1961 version, directed by Jerome Robbins and Robert Weiss. West Side Story, the 2021 version, directed by Steven Spielberg. CODA by C.N. Heder. And we have newly released Fresh by Mimi Cave and The Adam Project, directed by Sean Levy. So stay tuned and enjoy the show. Mr. Vincent Daly, how we doing, buddy?
Tommy boy, how's it going?
It's going super well. How was your week of movies, man?
Week was all right.
Okay.
I was happy to do kind of an Oscar roundup. Oscars are on the 27th, I believe, and luckily throughout the time of the podcast, I've covered a lot, but there were some things that slipped through the gap. I'm happy to
some stragglers.
Yeah, to at least catch up on the overwhelming 10 Best Picture nods. A little ridiculous, but you know.
So I actually like the 10.
You like the 10? Okay.
I'm glad they went from 5 to 10.
I can't remember. Did they do 10 last year with the thin type of?
Yeah, they've done 10 for a few years now, I think.
Oh, okay.
I like it. I'm fine with the 10. I mean, I just hate the Oscars. Mm-hmm. As far as I'm switching from 5 to 10, I'm fine with.
Sure.
And I'm glad that you kind of did. We did some cleanup work here.
Yeah, and I think that's, I will let folks at home discover maybe what my pick is. I won't say it outwardly, what would be my top 4 running.
At the end of the show, how about that?
Yeah,
Because that way we hit all 10.
Yeah, that's true. So,
I don't think I'm rooting for any of them.
Yeah.
And the only thing I'm rooting for is for things to lose.
Right, yeah. But I think it was a really good time catching up on these. Unfortunately, wasn't a massive fan of anything this week except maybe one, but nonetheless, always like to talk about movies, and if anything, that gives me more ammo in the belt. I can talk about, something of why I think it is maybe more middle of the road or why it doesn't work for me. And I think sometimes those make for better than me just kind of gushing for.
I love the bad ones.
You're like filling out the.
I love it.
Right.
And it's funny because I don't have to watch the bad ones. Sorry. All right, let's get going with some classics here. So we're going to start with West Side Story, the original. This is 1961. We've all known it. We've all heard of it, even without the new one coming out. So how did this original fare? What do we get here?
Yeah, so this was actually rated for the site and for when Tom and I were doing this as a pastime, really, folks at home. So I'm coming back to this more as a revisit and to put meat on the bones of what my review is going to be. But for maybe those with the keen eye on the site that may have seen this in some capacity, I'm a strong believer that my rating for it was when I was, considering film in this lens, through a critical lens, through trying to take this very seriously and for some sort of, pass off for someone to watch this or have as a watching guide for it.
I'm trying to, do you remember when you watched this? So, and again, folks, so everyone knows at home, we've been working on this list for, I don't know, it's disputed between you and I how long we've been working on it. I thought we've been hashing this out for like 4.5 years. Mm-hmm. You think it's been longer than that?
I think it's been longer.
But regardless, we've been sitting down periodically, and it would just be me on a couch and Vin on the other couch, and we would be like, what's the movies you watched in the past month or 2 months or whatever? Yeah. And of course, it was just naturally kind of was a podcast.
Yeah, I believe.
How far back?
West Side Story was a watch, I believe, off of a coworker recommendation because I just went to a new team, and my friend Melissa Mato, she recommended, she said, "Oh, you should watch West Side Story," because I was just into movies. You know, we weren't talking in the context of, "Oh, I'm scoring these movies in any sort of way."
Right, you and I were.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But you know, that wasn't outwardly
right.
done.
Yeah.
But
otherwise,
yeah.
it would have been like, what?
Yeah. So I want to
Not
say,
even a podcast. You just sit on the couch. You just sit on the couch with your buddy? Yeah. But anyway, a long time ago. At least 3 years ago.
At least 3 years, I would say. West Side Story, of course, the 1961. This is an Oscar powerhouse. This was, I mean, previously reviewed, like I said. I was ecstatic to revisit it because it really is such a landmark film. Important to understand in the context of this remake as well, because with the remake getting critical praise, initially I think my objective in approaching this review is, can both films exist side by side? Is there even value in seeing both? This is a Broadway adaptation, so I have no problem that there is a remake of West Side Story to begin with. I have no problem with that. It's more so, not that it has to be a competition between the two, but what is going to speak to the source material best, and most importantly, what comes out better in the end result is kind of my objective.
Yeah, what is the better film?
Yeah, exactly. This film, of course, is the musical romance between Tony and Maria, driven apart through racial gang divides of the Jets and the Sharks. Pretty damn classic. Even in how the big proper names of this film are summarized. I mean, it was I don't per se even like summarizing films. I like just talking about them, but it was just so easy because this is truly just such a classic. We talk a lot about watching in the present day on the podcast, and this movie is a perfect example of something being timeless. The pitch of a Latin Cuban jazz musical that is a modern day take of Romeo and Juliet, that is as electric as an elevator pitch as it is in modern day, and I would hope for 100 years from now.
It absolutely carries through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just an improvisation on Romeo and Juliet, or at least framework of that. Again, just the Latin Cuban jazz roots of it, the jazz ballet that is within this performance, it creates a feeling of its own. It almost creates a world of its own. You know? By no means would this be a realistic take on inner city gang violence in 1957 when this rough ballpark takes place with the original broadcast or Broadway run. But still, it creates such a continuity in itself, and it's its commitment to just how much of a musical it is. And that's speaking about this film specifically. I think, again, why I stress this watching in present day so much is because there's such an energy on screen. There's not really a timed aspect to this because the songs are going to be remaining the same. We'll obviously talk about in the new West Side Story, there is a kind of a remixing, a zigzag of the order of events, which I think is refreshing. It's not exactly beat for beat.
Yeah, that's good. It's not carbon copy.
Exactly. And I'm sure obviously Spielberg wanted to and had excitement in revisiting such an iconic film, iconic Broadway play.
I feel like for him too, Spielberg's just not going to go and do somebody else's thing. I think he's just like, I need to make this different for me. Like he's very much like, no, I'm not just going to take somebody's work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
He's very much, I think he wanted to put his own thumbprint on it for sure.
I agree. And so, I mean, I'll get into some of my notes with the new one, but a pretty bombastic thing to do because West Side Story is such a landmark film. I remember listening to an interview with Michael Bay, of all directors, Transformers Michael Bay. And he credits West Side Story as one of the landmark films that shaped his view as a director.
Really?
Yeah.
What cut did he watch with explosions and like lasers and stuff that he got all the inspiration from.
It's a pretty phonetic film, this old West Side Story. I mean,
a lot of pyrotechnics, a lot of pyrotechnics in the film, I guess, that Michael Bay really was captured by.
A lot of Transformer sounds. And,
no, but that's awesome though. That's cool.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think the pitch of this movie, the matching of a classic story with a kind of an improvisation through the creative lens of Latin jazz, I think it's really electric. I think partly in the execution of the film, why it is so good are the dance sequences. The pacing in this film is incredible. I really do love how dance sequences are just so alive. It brings an action film quality, and really that Michael Bay interview, and totally aside, there is action quality to the dancing because it's supposed to relay through jazz ballet, which is definitely not an action. Maybe like the Big Umbrella, that's action.
Right.
But through jazz ballet is supposed to depict gang violence. And once again, I return to the commitment to the style. This film creates a reality that jazz ballet is a logical way to explore this gang violence, and so amazing for it. These dance sequences are like action sequences, and keeps the audience engaged. It really does have almost a modern film pacing for that reason. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. I think that's awesome. I think it's something so easy to mess up. So to hear it's done so well, I think it's extremely impressive. And it's no shock. I mean, you think about how well known the movie is and everything like that. But that's cool. You know, it's a 2.5 hour movie, and that the pacing is good and is able to keep you, bring you into those moments and entertain you a bit, much like an action sequence does or something like that.
Exactly.
And it sounds like with the music used and like those sequences, the dance sequences and music, I'm sure it just somehow resembled that rough and tumble kind of 50s New York, like gang stuff. It's just funny because obviously you're pairing musicals with gangs.
Right.
But when it's the type of music, it had some type of rough and tumbleness. I'm sure it somehow emulated the time period or
I think so, and
characters you're dealing with.
Even if it's not, even if you look at it and say, oh well, that's not realistic at all.
Well, sure,
that's also not the point, and the film never sells you on that unrealism.
No,
from the word go, it is.
It's not trying. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, it is. People are very artsy and they're breaking out and stepping out. That is definitely. It sells its own idea just from the commitment to just how cool it really is in execution, this jazz ballet. I'll get into a little bit of my criticism. I think I kind of come 50-50 with my recommendation with this, or at least a tone back, because I will say this is capital M musical. If you are not a fan of musicals, this is not going to hit for you. Exactly.
It's got me written on it, yeah.
Yeah, Tom's pulling it.
Grease has this soft spot in my heart.
Oh, that's true.
But other than that, it's tough for me.
Yeah. But I'll
I'm just thinking how I'm yet to watch La La Land. Yeah. And you're just like, just watch it. It's fantastic.
I know. Oh, man. That's where the magic mix is. Again, we have a dynamite idea, commitment to how pacing is done and action is presented on screen, or at least what feels action qualities to how the film is presented. And I would say the cornerstone of why this all works, the cinematography here is the biggest highlight, and definitely why this is leagues above the 2021 Spielberg rendition of this. The cinematography is excessively good. I mean,
it's awesome.
It is so. I mean, not only the choreography of how to utilize a frame and illustrate something unique. I mean, we're just coming off of, or maybe not just, but coming off of Fred Astaire February. I mean, I'm pretty in tune with choreography and reviewing it critically. When it comes to how scenes are shot, there really is, not to have a pun to it, but there really is a dance between what is being presented through the choreography and the camera angles, the shots to match it, and to have visual visual storytelling through that. Again, excessively good is my thoughts on that. The colors are so bright in the foreground, especially on the shark side. You know, we have very flamboyant purples contrasted with blues, and often those colors are on dresses and suits. And where I'm talking about how this is the cornerstone to why everything works is because the colors are emphasized in the foreground of the shot, it flawlessly complements that these dance sequences are really the life on screen. That's when you can't take your eyes off the screen, or you don't want to, much like an action sequence, and you're drawn in almost, you know, kind of primally to the colors moving on screen, and everything else is kind of de-emphasized behind it.
That's fantastic. That's awesome to hear.
Exactly.
Like that being done in 61 through such basic means, but like, I wish that simplicity was used more because it still holds up. You know, some people just with the way that different people use cinematography today, and like they're trying to be cool or interesting, and they ruin it when it's like something small like that.
Something so simple as color design. You know, I mean, this is not you know, this is not really complex stuff, especially even in the implementation. It's not like they're matching things, you know, too complexly. It's just that it's done so excessively well, and it's done specifically to complement the dancing. Guess what? The whole thing's dancing. The whole thing's jazz ballet. You know, so it really is just such a follow through on the idea of what they wanted to accomplish, and again, pieces working together so nicely.
That's awesome. We'll just want to mention that cinematographer is Daniel L. Flapp.
Oh yeah.
And he did a lot of work, but
and this going back then too.
Yeah, some of the stuff that he did was The Great Escape, The Unsinkable Molly Brown. I mean, unbelievable work.
I would love to revisit Great Escape. I don't think that's actually on the ratings.
Oh, that would be a blast.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
that's Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen special, maybe.
That would be phenomenal.
Yeah,
that would be really good. Well, people write in, see if they're, see if they'd be interested in that.
There we go. And like I said, not to go on too long about this, I think my final thoughts really boil down to a very simple factor that, again, this is capital M musical. This is about as musical as it gets. And songs are back to back, I would say almost relentlessly. There's not a lot of time to sit without either a song playing or a choreography unfolding on the screen, even with if it's without singing or anything like that.
And not annoying.
Yeah, and you know,
I would be, because I feel like I would be annoyed by that.
It's not annoying for me. I just think I have to kind of consider that a little bit for the palatability, and that's why we're talking about it.
Right.
You know, much, you know, specifically as well, you, Tom, if folks at home know that musicals are not their bag, this is not going to hit in the same way. It still may hit. I'm still following through on, I think this is a great film, and I think a lot can be appreciated here, but that's where I kind of counterbalance it a little bit. If you do, though, if musicals are your bag and somehow you haven't seen this movie, well, guess what? You have a stellar movie to watch. We're going to go ahead and give West Side Story 1961 and 81.
81, a phenomenal score.
Yeah.
And, you know, that it holds up to his name then.
Absolutely.
It's well deserving of that score.
And really a joy to watch. I was almost surprised how much I enjoyed rewatching it, especially since fairly recently I did really, I was, you know, kind of knives out on this, you know, to watch it critically. So,
yeah.
It was
especially because you just did watch it critically. I mean, it's only been a few years, but like you kind of did visit it already for the daily ratings. So
absolutely.
Having that same, I don't know, that's fantastic. Okay, wow, 81 for West Side Story. It's nice to see that something so iconic, you know,
holds up.
Well, we watched a Kane Mutiny recently. Well, you did. Right, exactly. It was laughable.
You're bringing up the, you're ripping the Band-Aid on Bogart. Bogart's ghost.
But, yeah, it's nice to see something, you know, 60 years later live up to its name.
I agree. And 61 is pretty damn early, too. We're not even talking late 60s, I think. You know, the evolution that happens late 60s and early 70s in film that's what really produces a lot of serious and a lot of the heavy hitters. And yeah, it really is great to see that it can hold up like that.
Very cool. 81's extremely good score. It's so now, you know, we can't wait to see how this pairs against the 2021 remake, West Side Story with Steven Spielberg.
Steven Spielberg.
What do we get with this?
Spielberg with the biggest balls on the block, thinking he could remake this movie. I do think you brought up a great point that he He definitely wanted to make his own spin on it. Even I, not a screenwriter, I can appreciate it, but by no means, working in the biz. Even I, watching that first West Side Story, it could see the potential for a modern evolution, a modern take of a lot of ideas.
Okay.
Especially around racial conflict, the gang conflict, even some characters in specific. I definitely see why this, in 2021 at the time, of course, right on December, right on the cusp of 2022, would have potential, and why someone would say, yeah, this is the time for West Side Story remake. So I want to give him credit there.
You could see that this was, because I was kind of asking who's asking for this. Do you think it works for the time? You think?
I think watching it, you say, oh, wow, this could evolve very well to the film landscape of 2022.
Okay.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, though. Who was really asking for this, I don't know.
Yeah, because
musical heads, theater geeks.
Sometimes it's just like, why are you touching such a classic?
Sure.
And if it's that good, I mean, we just went through how good it is.
Mm-hmm.
And
what Spielberg's not really one for remakes either, if I'm correct.
No, he really isn't.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of weird where it's like, I mean, maybe it's a love note. Mm-hmm. Again, we don't really dig that deep into it. And again, we're sitting down or watching the movie for what it is, and
very true.
And everything like that. Like, I get 60-year anniversary, okay, but it was interesting. I did feel like, why? It just felt, again, it's like, oh, we're just remaking everything these days.
I agree entirely. Yeah. I can't say this is a beat-for-beat remake either. There definitely is some craft into rearranging some things, mostly for the better. I would say almost nearly 100% for the better. There's a lot more of a engagement to the story. Basically, it's the same beginning, and the movie kind of zigzags in the middle. Songs get rearranged. Plot points get kind of blown out for more drama, more dialogue. And overall, as a result, this is, I would say, a notch lower on capital M musical. It is a little bit less of a musical. And once again, for those that maybe, gag at a musical or can't stomach it, maybe there's some potential there that it could be your experience to experiencing West Side Story.
Was it nice to see more story development and like character development in that, where it's because you have less musical acts? No.
It's weaker. I think it's weaker. I wish I could say because it's more serious, it's more realistic. Colors are more muted. In the gang violence, it's not all jazz ballet. Like, there's weapons and and things like that.
Okay.
So I think overall, though, by making this more realistic and more of a dramatic telling of the story, some of the magic is lost. It's a bit more lifeless, if I had to kind of give it a pitch. There's muted colors, like I said. There's also an absurd amount of lens flare. I was questioning if J.J. Abrams was on a on a producer credit list. So, an absurd amount of lens flare.
That's not very. That's not very Spielberg.
Yeah.
And the cinematographer Spielberg used is a guy he used for Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
Who's not very
right.
Not a lot of lens flare going on.
Imagine if there wasn't Saving
maybe
Private
JJ was on set one day or something like that.
Tom Hanks just squinting.
I was gonna make a joke when you made the Michael Bay. When you were like Michael Bay, I was like, what are you gonna say next? J.J. Abrams had got lens flare from the original too. That's pretty
Little
funny,
did
though.
you know, right on the money. Yeah. But what I want to return to, and I'm really not trying to say, oh, old is better. I'm really going into this fresh. But when you watch that original, there is, like I said, there is such a commitment to the style that, yes, maybe jazz ballet on the surface looks a bit silly, especially when paired with a topic like gang and racial violence. Mm-hmm. But it's the commitment that all action is presented through jazz ballet is why it's good. By having more realistic aspects of it, by having maybe some actual fights instead of the jazz ballet, when that is introduced, guess what? It comes off a little bit more silly. It shoots itself in the foot with that.
Okay.
That
totally makes sense.
I mean, maybe when your characters exclusively interact by by performing, interpretive dance in front of each other, it lends itself to a more fantastical look. I'm saying that the gritty reboot of this is shooting itself in the foot.
It's more so an all or nothing.
Yeah.
Let's have a gang. Let's have a gang movie where it's actually we're getting gang movie.
Yeah.
Or let's if you're gonna do a musical, make it a full on musical if you're using these themes. I mean, it's all or nothing. That makes sense.
And I just think. I don't know. I think in ways where this could be new viewing audiences, West Side Story, it could be their generation's West Side Story. At the same time, I think because of that lack of commitment and almost the awkward mashing of the artsy elements and the gang elements.
Were you sitting there and you were just like, pick a lane?
Oh, for sure.
Like, kind of?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a shame because I think it's a self-inflicted wound, and if anything, it left me saying, Spielberg, why didn't you go all the way and maybe really go ham into creating something new? If this is going to be like kind of like a grittier, more realistic, more muted West Side Story, I don't know, maybe rework the songs altogether. I mean, they would probably have to be songs. It would almost be blasphemous not to do the songs, but I don't know. It was a step in a direction that I think did not commit to its step, where that is the exact opposite of my criticism with the first one.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
And for the betterment of the first one or the original. So yeah, I just think I don't know. It's just so silly seeing them have engine oil and dust on their face, and then they just break out. They just start jiving.
Okay,
and
so I would
jazz hands.
Yeah, that's what I wouldn't like.
Yeah.
Something tells me that the original would strike a chord with me.
Yeah, yeah.
And the commitment to it, like you said, that's different. You're setting it up differently. If you're trying to split the baby a little bit,
exactly.
That's where you would lose me. That's eye rolling. Eye rolling.
And I think, if anything, oddly enough, even though on the surface it looks maybe more palatable for the non-musical fan audience, I strongly believe that this is because of the music elements. There's almost spotlighted, because it's whoa, where is this coming from?
Right.
It almost hurts itself more. Again, I don't want to dig into it too much, but because ultimately this criticism kind of boils down to I prefer something else in the interpretation of it.
Right. But still, as a singular movie.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it shoots itself in the foot. And its lack of commitment. So, a positive note is actually on Maria's side. Very interestingly, in the script of this film, Spanish is constantly interwoven into the script, with characters dipping in and out of English. When emotions are high, when emotions rise, the native language is there to meet it, and honestly, it is wonderful. I think it was a great immersion technique. If we are going to have more muted colors and not be able to spot a shark versus a jet, we can definitely spot it through how they're talking
and
how
good. That's
they're
cool.
interacting with each other in more comfortable scenarios. So I think it was really wonderful. A tiny bit odd because there really isn't a subtitle option when these come up. It comes up actually as generic text, like emotional in Spanish or emotional in. It's very odd.
Okay.
Mostly, I think it works though because it is always used in a way that the audience member, at least if you're paying attention, the audience member knows the story beats playing out, and it's used in a lot of time of recapping story beats to other Spanish characters. And again, it's only really coming out when emotions are high, which obviously is a way to communicate, even if you don't know what the actual words are, a way to communicate the feeling of the scene, which I thought was successful. And probably the biggest highlight I have to this film, I thought it was a great evolution of what a very Latin, very Spanish story is about immigration and whatnot. I thought that was a great way to draw sides, which is what this is about. What any kind of Romeo and Juliet type of framework would be around, drawing sides.
And how was Juliet's Romeo? How was Ansel Elgort?
Baby Driver.
Yeah.
I think he's all right. I had a note in here that I thought I was going to give him brownie points for kind of looking like the original actor. I totally forget the original actor's name.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's all right. I think overall everyone's pretty good. Actually, the best performance is actually Tony's brother, Biff. I forget the character's name, and I definitely don't know the actor's name, but he brought
Mike
Riff.
Fast or Faced or something like that. Yeah.
He was actually very surprising, especially for a supporting role. At first I saw him and I was like, this doesn't look like the guy, but he sold it. I don't know if he has a long musical theater career or something, but you could tell like he was putting his all into this.
All right.
So Ansel and Maria as the other lead.
Rachel Zegler, yeah.
Yes. It's certainly passable. Good singing voices. I didn't think anything stand out, but at the same time, I wasn't really giving that type of praise to the previous one either.
Right.
So, as far as if I'm being honest with myself, I think there are some, on the positive side of this, I think there are some renditions of songs I really do prefer in this movie because of some visual storytelling that Spielberg dips into. The track G Officer Krupkite, and then also the very famous America, they're given so much more life because Spielberg's got the cash. They're working with many big sound sets and stages, I would imagine all within studio, but it looks really dynamite, and I would say most of all, the choreography, in these revised versions, even though they're mixed around and rearranged sometimes, oddly enough, they do kind of stand out as almost like the definitive versions of those songs.
Okay, that's a plus.
I think so, yeah. And I want to give credit where credit is due, and clearly Spielberg is a powerhouse, so if he brought nothing to the table, I'd be really, I'd be worked up.
Yeah.
But I think he really does introduce, especially in the context of some songs and how they're introduced, and what plays out on screen, possibly some definitive versions of it between the two. And once again, if anything, that leads me to believe there might be a preference for this one, as much as I have kind of a problem with its implementation. So, But that is really when I can appreciate this movie, when it evolves what it's going after. It is a real shame that too often it feels like it just lacks spirit. And what is a musical but spirit? What is a musical but an explosion of feelings and emotion that are so high, that are so built up?
Absolutely.
That dance is the
It's so true. No, it's absolutely
I can
true.
only dance to get this out. Yeah. I think lacking that, it's certainly original in ways, but it's kind of the pitfall of trying to remake a classic like this. We're going to go ahead and give West Side Story 2021 a 65.
Okay, 65. I don't
Certainly
think that...
parts to admire, but...
Yeah, I mean, 65 is basically what you're saying is, yeah, that's a good movie.
Yeah.
And it basically stops there.
And I think it's mostly good because of the source,
Oh, yeah.
There's only so much it could sink low because that source is so dynamite.
And I think that represents it phenomenally. Go from an 81 to a 65, and it didn't crush it completely. You know what I mean? And, all right, I think a 65 makes sense. And again, if you're looking for a bit of a change up or looking for a modern spin on things, maybe you really would, go ahead and check this one out.
Sure. And I think, again, in the fact that some of these segments are really the definitive ways to maybe see it play out with the choreography, I think there is enjoyment as well for maybe those diehard West Side Story fans that are not going to want any kind of remake as well. So
Right, of course. Okay, Vince, so, all right, we go from West Side Story there for 65. We're going to go ahead and do one more previously released. Again, this is also a 2021. West Side Story came out after this film, but we want to kind of pair those together.
Yeah.
But this one is CODA. Mm-hmm. Again, Oscar buzz, of course.
Up for Best Picture.
Yeah, right. Apple TV? An Apple original?
You read my mind.
Oh,
are you looking at my notes?
No, sir.
You
no.
logged into
I promise, sir. No. It's CODA here. What do we have?
An Apple original. Wasn't too happy to add my credit card back into their nightmare system. But it was too perfect to cap off the remaining Best Picture nods in this episode. The week right before. Because we obviously, next week's episode, it's going to be too late with that, especially if you at home, folks, are looking to watch these at all. CODA is another one like Drive My Car that unfortunately has me scratching my head a little bit for the buzz on it. CODA is a high school family comedy drama focused around a musically inclined teenage girl named Ruby that is played by Amelia Jones, who has been in things. I have not seen her in other things, but yeah, she's doing a good job here. Her love of singing, honestly, is the focal point here, and it's paired ironically in the film as she is the only non-deaf character in a family of four. And this is where a fairly simple movie becomes interesting. I think for starters, the family, the mother, the father, and the son are fully deaf actors in real life.
Oh, really?
Yes. And
this is getting interesting.
It is. And while I can't say I have seen much sign language in acting, I think all of them are really doing a great job. There's a lot of subtleties that are incorporated into the son. A very much, almost I would say, an entire subtle arc that's really never in black and white explained or confronted for the mother, but definitely there if you're paying attention for her kind of arc with her relationship to the daughter. And then, of course, we have a nod for Best Supporting Actor being Troy Kotsur. I think it's Kotsur.
Yeah, Kotsur.
And
Playing the father.
Playing the father, again, fully deaf actor in real life, and largely a comedic performance, which I gotta say, despite me scratching my head of this being Best Picture, I will say I can fully get behind him being in the running here for Best Supporting. I was impressed not only that the Oscars would recognize such a comedic performance, because usually that's, the death seal is comedy.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But I guess, what do we know? Don't Look Up is in the Best Picture nod, so
right,
I mean,
yeah.
It's all out the window. But I
And
really...
it's Best Supporting, correct? It's
Yes,
not Best
Supporting.
Okay.
And I really do think he's up for the running. Syrian Hines is still my choice from Belfast, much like Judi Dench on the Best Supporting Actress side is my choice. I think those duo in Belfast was definitely my choice. But I could see him very much being in the running, and he does have a career to him being as a deaf actor. A lot of bit roles, but was in some feature films, so very good to see. And I can't stress enough, he is able to, oddly enough, almost against all odds, he is able to build in some serious depth to sign language acting.
To a voiceless character.
Yeah, to a voiceless character.
Yeah.
A lot of that is through eyes. A lot of that is through worry as well.
Just overall, like body language.
Yeah, I think my favorite parts are when he wants to experience something with his daughter, but instead of looking at his daughter, he's constantly looking around to see if he should react in a certain way. It is some really good storytelling with him, or at least a storytelling through his performance, which obviously is something to look at regardless of the sign language. And I think that's where he could really be in the running, because it's taken over the top. The fact that this inclusion of an actual deaf actor, in addition to others, it's a move that should be rewarded simply because it's a creative limitation and it's a hurdle that they are self-imposing on them, on the film itself. Not only that, they get over that hurdle perfectly, and it's really good on top of it.
And it's honestly, it's just so great to hear that he's in this spot and he's deserving of it. And if he gets it, and the fact that you're saying like, oh, he has a really good chance, that's
absolutely
great. For this one, we can say the Oscars weren't trying to be woke in any sort of way or something like that.
Exactly.
This is the deserving actor to be in this spot.
100%.
Awesome.
Yeah. And that's where I really wanted to dedicate some time to talking about it.
Yeah,
because even though I'm pretty lukewarm on this film, there are standouts. I see no problem with the best nod towards him in Best Supporting Actress or Actor, but where it gets into this, it's a pretty straightforward movie. The whole movie is around the conflict of normal life with the pressures of Ruby's integral responsibilities to her family, so that they may have a normal life as well. It's definitely not the, it's not a problem that I don't have that I have with the originality of it. And there's no doubt that this movie has heart. I'm not trying to be cold or heartless here, but this Best Picture nomination again has me scratching my head. If I'm being real, Tommy, This is like a really good Disney Channel movie. This is
That totally makes sense.
the framework of it, how drama is incorporated. Don't get me wrong. I can get down with a Xenon. I can get down with a Smart House.
Oh my God, Brink? Are you kidding me? Any day of the
Cool
week.
Runnings?
Oh, well, yeah, but yeah, that's definitely talk about Oscars.
But I mean, this is an Oscar film. This is not. It is not a bad movie by any regards, but there's too much that is. It's just not
There's
there.
nothing good. There's nothing great about it. Kind of par for the course in its weird own way.
Yeah.
So Disney Channel Hallmarky kind of deal?
Hallmarky maybe is a little bit more generous to it. Jokes aside, I think what gives me this Disney vibe is the opposition to the family throughout the film. Whenever they are confronted with any sort of ignorance to their deaf how they have to interact, or the sign language,
Sure.
or really anyone that is in conflict to the family, to obviously have drama to the story, it's just met with such a cartoonish ignorance. Like, I believe the son is called like a freak at one point. It's like, he's deaf. He's not like a leper or something like that.
Right.
It's just like, it is so cartoonishly of like how the people that are intolerant to the family are absolutely bad guys, like the worst of society, and that tends to be everyone in the film.
It's
that
black
is
and
against
white.
it.
Yeah, it's very trying to set up a narrative or something like that. And that's
Yeah.
why you say Disney. You said Hallmark would be giving it too much praise.
No, I would say Hallmark is maybe a little bit more generous. I think Disney is, like I said,
I would rather be on Disney.
than Hallmark.
Yeah.
Okay,
Are you
all right.
kidding me?
Well, we're 90s kids, you know.
Well, that's true, yeah. But no, I think that explanation.
Yeah, that's really where the criticism, and like I said, jokes aside, it's definitely unfair to call something with this much inclusion and this much really care into the heart of the story. Clearly, I would imagine production members probably have and can speak from experience in, maybe deaf people in their life, or maybe even among the production cast. I don't really know off the top of my head, but it's in the cartoonishness of the opposition, of the antagonist to the story. Yes, it maybe keeps you engaged and why you should give a damn in this movie, but again, it's just Best Picture. This is not, and I'm not trying to really just dig into it, but it's just not there. It's a little bit too simple of a story,
and this is where the Oscars almost were going for awokeness, and let's put it in for Best Picture.
Well, this goes back to my comment with the 10. Were they scraping the barrel with this one? I would say Mass is worth a nod over this.
Yeah.
I would say maybe
out of all the movies, that's what I'm saying. Out of all
Ridley
the
Scott is dying. He produced 2 films, and swinging on miss.
Oh, that's true. House of Gucci is not nominated for Best Picture?
I think it's costume design, no best supporting.
He got screwed. Mm-hmm. I love to make fun of Ridley Scott these days, but man, did he get screwed. I feel bad.
Really did.
What's Her Face deserves it 100%.
Sure. Yeah,
Lady
I
Gaga.
agree. Lady Gaga.
But scraping the barrel, come on. There's been good movies that have come out.
Exactly. So I again, don't get me wrong, folks. This is perfectly fine as a family movie. If anything, a very above average family movie with some serious bonus points for the inclusion of multiple deaf actors. Again, I'm giving credit to this both for the execution of what is actually done on screen with these deaf actors, but again, the desire to tell a story and do such justice to that idea of a deaf family. No one was twisting their arm for this.
Right.
So I think that deserves some serious bonus points. And like I said, I'll go so far to say that Troy, it might be a real big front runner and certainly someone deserved of the Oscar. But content-wise, this is a very, very well-established youth drama formula that we have all seen before. And I stress to you, watching this movie, again, not bad, certainly a great heart-filled family film. You can predict everything that happens in this film from the word go. We're going to go ahead and give CODA a 61.
Okay, 61, yeah. And maybe, if you have that, if you want to sit down with the family and watch something, maybe your kids, or maybe,
Maybe this is a safe watch to introduce the Oscars as well to a family. I mean, I'm just kind of spitting.
No, absolutely, yeah. And if you have kids that are able to, understand the concept of what the film is and everything like that, maybe that's where this film is, and maybe where it just should be at.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically, okay, yeah. But I think it's 61. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it just makes me scratch my head because especially when you consider Best Animated and the absolute run train that Pixar does on the Oscars, year after year. The stories told in some of the best Pixar movies, certainly I would argue, are worth more best picture. Why are we not seeing that in this picture spot?
Exactly. Right.
It just doesn't make sense to me. And like I said, much like driving my car, something on the sidelines, I think.
Okay, all right. So 61 for CODA. Those were our 3 previously released films. Coming up, we have our brand new 22 kind of in theaters, now released films. But first, of course, we're going to go ahead and go into our producer segment here. And we're so happy that today we have a producer on the docket, which we love. So we're going to give a big shout out here to Loretta Vecchio. So Loretta, we thank you for donating $100.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Which we love.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, exactly. But again, of course, since she donated, she can go ahead and write a note in, and she says, "This is a very entertaining, enjoyable, and informative podcast. Vincent's reviews are sincere and fair, and provide tidbits of information which entice and whets the appetite for more, while captivating the listener with a look into the director's vision and actors." Listen to this note.
Wow.
Vincent and Tom are
too much praise.
Vincent, too much praise. We don't deserve this. Vincent and Tom. She goes, "Hey, there's more." Vincent and Tom are a wonderful team with their honest, knowledgeable, and fun interactions. Very enjoyable listening. It is clear they have a great love of all movies, good or bad. The bad ones, and respect the industry and all who try to make it happen. Again, mostly respect for most people. But she has a "keep up the great work," 3 exclamation points. Love it, 4 exclamation points. Highly recommend, 2 exclamation points.
Wow. That's a lot of punctuation, Loretta.
May all of the good things in this world happen to you. That was an unbelievable. That is a daily ratings note right there.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Once again, there's got to be something you don't agree with me on.
You should have shit on something at least. How could we be upset after that?
I know.
Wow, $100 with that note. So happy that that you would take the time to do that. So happy that you're enjoying it as well too. Again, it's a value for value model, folks. So basically, it's what value are we providing for you? What did you get from the site or the podcast? And $100 from you, Loretta. We thank you so much. You were the sole and executive producer here for this show. And folks, if you're new at listening or kind of confused at what's going on here, this is the producer segment of the podcast. And, Vin and I aren't running off of ads or anything like that, advertising. Basically, this is the value for value model. And like I just said, you're getting value from us, the podcast. You're checking out the site. If you could just, give us some kickback in a donation form.
Whatever that means to you, too. It doesn't have to be $100, certainly.
Oh, my gosh. Are you kidding me? I mean, hey, if you want to, you go for it. But basically what you do is you go to thedailyratings.com. You go to the donations tab, and there we have set amounts. We have one-time donations, or we have a weekly and monthly, if you want to do that. And then we have the value for value donation, which is any one you want. It's, if you want to give $2, if you want to give $42 or $42.02, you do whatever you want.
Absolutely.
And you can set that to a monthly, or again, if it's just one time, that would be amazing. And basically what this segment is thanking you, the producers, who help produce this podcast. Vin and I host the podcast and the website you all actually help produce. And it's something that we're having fun with. It just takes a lot of time and a little bit of money to keep this going. So all of you who help produce this podcast, we thank you so much. And Loretta, we thank you for being the producer of this episode, and that's a producer credit that goes to you. Now, with that being said, Vin, I think we're going to keep this going here. And this is our in theaters now, newly released films. And we're going to go ahead and start with Fresh, which a movie was not on my radar much, but this is kind of a Sundance darling, right?
Yes. It has got some buzz for Sundance back in early January, I believe. Both of these films that we're covering for the new release slot are both streaming options. So, as always, I like to note the barrier to entry is very low. So if this sounds good to you, give it a watch. I mean, you got worse things to you got worse things to lose. When it comes to this, Fresh is a new movie from new director Mimi Cave. I believe her first feature film. She's done a lot of shorts, I believe some music videos.
Oh, okay.
And also another film that has an opening 40 minutes in, Tom.
No.
I swear to God.
Is this the new thing?
It makes me wonder, is this a trend forming because television writing and just overall producing type, TV or serial type of stories, is this how they're trying to make almost like that it is like a proto or a pilot type of thing before we get into the movie? I'm not sure.
Well, what's the goal there? So everyone listening, so if you didn't catch the episode that we did before the zombie special, when we did Drive My Car, we were saying how there's a 40-minute intro, basically. And then we just then we have the movie starting. And this one does it again. It's only 2 hours long.
Yeah, it's definitely not the 3 hours of Drive My Car.
What would be the goal of that? Now, how was this set up? Was it just that we get title sequences coming 40 minutes in? Or is it just like, oh, no.
It is the title 40 minutes in, yeah. And
but then
a pretty drastic tone. Yeah. And I would say I'm a little bit more of a fan with this, and I'll get into the summary of the film in a second, just so you have some idea of what Fresh is. But again, just a weird thing to note, and especially back-to-back as well.
It's a little strange what we have going on here.
Yeah, so...
Again, I still don't understand the purpose.
I don't understand the purpose. This one I enjoyed just because stylistically it was so drastic, but to be fair, that was the same thing with Drive My Car, and I feel like it didn't work, so...
So in this one, what's the goal of it? Is it setting up backstory, and then it's just like, okay, now the story starts?
Yeah, the beginning is setting up the dating world in modern day, and specifically the dating world through a female, dealing with explicit photos that are sent, unwanted or unsolicited, dealing with, kind of nightmare date scenarios, and then eventually serving as a meet cute for Sebastian Stan and where is she?
Or the main actress?
Daisy Edgar Jones. There we go. But a meet cute in screenwriting where there has to be a quick, digestible kind of spark to the beginning of a romantic relationship. And I think why I was all right with this 40-minute prologue, so to speak, is that for this, the chemistry on screen between Daisy and Sebastian really work. It is a enjoyable first 40 minutes, and I would say very interesting to see for Sebastian Stan, who, of course, we know primarily through being the Winter Soldier in the Marvel Universe, a very different role for him as well, all over this film. So I was definitely engaged, even though... I mean, is the writing the most amazing thing in the first 40 minutes? Probably not. But it almost is intentional to bring your guard down for what this movie becomes. Because when we really get into this movie, it evolves into a very stylish, bloody thriller film that is, honestly, more closely resembles a gender-swapped Get Out in structure than the actual pitch of this film. I would say, again, I mean, I am always a proponent to not watch the trailer. Unfortunately, the trailer did make me think this film was something else. And if anything, I enjoyed what this film really was much more. Where the trailer was focused on, the dating world, the horrors of Tinder and whatnot. In reality, again, is a much more of a thriller, more of a slasher, and really something interesting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, a lot of style from Mimi Cave. It really came out of it, and you can definitely tell in multiple things, not just music. I think style often gets generalized to just music. In a lot of aspects, typography on screen, camera angles, when energy is infused to this thriller plot, the true style that comes through absolutely has to be from Mimi Cave. So excited to see what's going to be coming down the pipeline.
Yeah,
from
definitely
her.
More from her.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, this is where Sebastian Stan really steps out of his usual moody, cool guy persona that we're used to, very quiet and whatnot. And he channels his his inner sociopath. He creates a very enjoyable villain in this. Especially for the type of mental manipulation that takes place and is constantly interwoven into his lines and his script for the character. If I'm being generous, almost he channels his inner Jack Nicholson, and how manic and how crazy he is on screen. But I bring it up as a note because it's not just him acting nuts, I mean, I think anyone can act nuts and try to do, I don't know, their best crazy person impression.
Right. He's actually
there's some serious follow through on how he's layering words. Obviously, that's to the screenplay and the script. But he's doing a really good job in selling the character.
So he's being a very realistic, insane person, kind of. Yeah,
absolutely. And I can't stress enough. I mean, while 40 minutes in, while revealing that this is a thriller versus a dating rom-com, certainly maybe could dip a little bit more into spoilerly territory for you folks at home. I do have to let you know about this, though, because if I pitch this kind of blindly as just a rom-com that goes wrong, I think that is not selling you on this film. And when I say a bloody thriller, I mean a really...
and some people legit are I hate to say triggered by it, but some people do definitely like to stay away from that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I am coming out of this enjoying it so much more because of what it became.
That's cool.
That's my bag,
Sure.
I like horror. I like thrillers. So, but yeah, that I do want to just let the folks at home know that usually I try to dance around these things a little bit more. I think it's important you understand what this is, and again, for the better. For the absolute better. Once again, something that's spoiled in the trailers. I hate trailers so goddamn much.
Oh, especially the modern day ones.
Oh, yeah. I was revisiting some old trailers. There were some there was some trends. There was some spoilerly stuff in something I watched recently.
Was it West Side Story?
No, it was like an old...
The Caine Mutiny?
Yeah, you're going to bring that up until I die, until Humphrey Bogart comes back and possesses me. And next thing you know, he's getting all 90s. He's going to hijack the show. But I beyond that, I do not want to talk about the story too much because it has some serious punch to the movie's plot. Honestly, I would say leaving it there is probably the best way we can dance around it. I would say a negative for me, oddly enough, is the soundtrack. It's just a way too in your face. Some of it passes my usual test of the continuity. It has to be playing in universe, I mean.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, which is big for me. Some of it passes it, but again, like always, and maybe this is another opportunity to flesh out my feelings on soundtrack and film. It's no judgment on the choices themselves. It is always about how it is implemented, whether that's implemented in the plot, the world, or just in general how the songs are being chosen and implemented into the film. So, if anything, I forget what we were talking about not too many weeks ago. I like the choices here. These are not bad choices. It's just kind of a little bit of a half pass, half fail. So, last quarter of this film, though, I would say also falls a tiny bit short for me as well. It's nothing too critical, but I think this is a very solid thriller with style and chemistry on screen, and I think that's really where I want to focus my last thoughts for my pitch. It would be one thing if the style was there. Mm-hmm. It'd be one thing if the chemistry and romance is there. But the fact that it juggles both, and I think probably for both of these actors, Daisy and Sebastian, playing a little bit outside their comfort zone, I think it's a pretty solid watch. I was pretty happy with it. So a great first swing for director Mimi Cave. I will certainly be paying attention. We're going to go ahead and give Fresh a 68.
Oh, 68, not in the 70s, though.
Not in the 70s.
I'm a little surprised by that. Yeah, you seem to really enjoy it.
I did enjoy it. I think, honestly, it plays into a little bit of, again, 40 minutes is focused on one thing. Last quarter
that's
maybe
true.
is a little bit weaker than what I would have liked. So, but again,
There's not a lot left there in a 2-hour movie then.
yeah, definitely above average. And I would say, again, this is a first-time feature length. A movie with this much style, I think that's where I come definitely on the higher end of above average.
Definitely keep an eye on Mimi Cave, like you said.
Absolutely.
I hope she's giving it. It sounds like she is getting attention. Like it looks like she's getting attention from this, and I hope if she has bigger projects that she would like to do.
Yeah.
Given the platform, given the budget, that would be awesome.
Absolutely. And if streaming is this is on Hulu, if I didn't mention it.
Yep, Hulu is.
If streaming is the spot that we get these types of stories, that would kind of be brushed aside in a theater experience, I say all the better. Good for her.
Love it. Okay, so that's Fresh with a 68. And okay, here we go with the last film. We have another Sean Levy with whatever the hell his name is, and this is The Adam Project.
He goes whatever the
We've
hell
got the free guy here in this film.
I love it.
But The Adam Project with Ryan Reynolds here, Vin. I don't know. What do we have?
Well, the second round with Sean Levy. Last time, like you said, it was free guy, and now this. And really, his partnership with Reynolds seems to be just getting started. After this, if I see correctly, he is set to do Deadpool 3, which of course is the main vehicle of Ryan Reynolds.
These two are really hitting it off.
Yeah,
because Free Guy came out in 2021 summer, and then this is coming out already.
Yeah. So I wonder what's being crafted there. I mean, clearly they love working together, and I guess I can support it. I mean, again, I wasn't too much of a fan of Free Guy, but there is kind of a visual language between these two films. The type of action is, again, one of the few positive things I said about Free Guy. There's an excessiveness to it, and in that excessiveness, it slightly has its own style. Slightly.
No, I would say it's the one thing. You gave Free Guy 31%, but the thing you did say good about it was kind of the action. And
You've been keeping me honest.
It did kind of look cool. So with The Adam Project, what is the film about exactly? What do we have there?
So The Adam Project is a time travel adventure movie. This is on Netflix, so we're covering the Netflix angle. Starring Ryan Reynolds in the year 2050 as Adam, and travels back in time to his 12-year-old self, Adam, to fight for a better future. Adventure movie is really the genre here.
Okay.
Adventure action, so I'm not saying it has to be so amazing in the pitch. What really unfolds is the action and comedy adventure as well, because again, Ryan Reynolds' comedy is on display here. I will say, not to unjustly crucify Ryan Reynolds, but Ryan Reynolds is not terrible in this film, not like Free Guy. Mainly, and I'll say once again, just more so calling back to the last episode that we did Free Guy with, he is playing an open character. There is no there's no gag reflex to trying to think about why Ryan Reynolds is cracking jokes like Ryan Reynolds.
Right.
Obviously this Adam character is open enough as a palette, so it works. So I'm fine with the implementation there, because it's his character is Ryan Reynolds in a lot of ways. And to be fair, I think a big highlight for me with this film is, believe it or not, the emotion he brings.
Ryan Reynolds?
Yes. The emotion he brings is fairly solid. The movie has some heart to it, and it's around a shared loss between both of the Adams, old Adam and young Adam. I think he's actually credited as a big Adam. So
Okay.
That was funny. And this right here is, I think, where I would lean into a recommendation slightly for it. There are some real tearjerker moments by the razzle dazzle at the end, and
Okay,
I have to be fair, it was fairly effective. I think if it was anyone else, I don't think I wouldn't be giving this praise, because to me, Ryan Reynolds is not a dramatic actor. So though maybe it was a little bit of tonal whiplash to get these kind of tearjerker moments in our very Ryan Reynolds comedy action adventure film, I think it shows a slight bit of depth and clearly maybe some care putting into crafting something new.
Yeah, and it succeeded. It sounded like it succeeded, and
exactly.
didn't do a fail, which maybe you would just assume that it would.
Exactly. I will say it was effective. On the other hand, though, this movie has a cardinal sin, and that's bad kid acting.
I was literally going to ask Walker Scobell as young Adam.
I know. I don't want to tear the kid apart.
Oh boy.
The kid is trying to do an impression of Ryan Reynolds in his performance.
Ooh.
And Ryan Reynolds type jokes. Very quick wit, very manic.
Yeah. There's only one Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's very simply not good. I will say I don't want to rip into the performance too much because very clearly the kid is not coming with the agency as a young actor to say, yeah, I want to try something creative here. And I'm supposed to be playing a younger version of him. Let me try to, emulate or mimic his talking style.
Right.
Clearly that's not his choice. Clearly that blame of the failure of how it sounds in the film falls on the production team, falls on maybe a little bit Sean Levy as the director. I don't want to dig in too much for the criticism because, again, it is a kid actor.
Yeah, but he sucked.
Yeah. It was a hard pill to swallow.
It was that bad, huh?
And he gets a lot of screen time in the beginning, too, so I think there's a probably, you look at Netflix stats, there's probably going to be a lot of shutoffs, first 30 minutes on this.
Oh, the poor kid.
I know.
Oh, man.
But for real, let's say this kid grows up and he becomes an Oscar actor or anything like that. You know what I mean? My criticism here is, yes, it's towards the kid, but I really think the blame falls on the production behind it. Does that make sense?
Oh,
I think that's balanced.
You're trying to save yourself from child abuse.
It is child abuse. He was terrible.
He was child abuse, and we're trying to go easy on him.
Yeah.
No, but he wasn't good. He's not the best kid actor. Look, it's very difficult to have good kid actors. So he's just, he's one of the many. Maybe in another role. I don't know.
We'll see. Again. And if I'm correct, this is his first, I think, as well. Like, he hasn't been in
If anything,
else.
It might be one of his first.
He oddly looked familiar, but yeah.
Just another kid actor.
It's tough.
Acting in the wind.
And cardinal sin is really what it is.
Well, maybe like you said, maybe it was production. Maybe it was like, who knows, people in production trying to push him in a certain way, the director. Or
There's definitely a deliberate
Be a little bit more Ryan Reynolds-y or something like that. I don't know. If the kid wants to donate in and write a note to us and explain the situation,
I love it.
We'd take it.
Explain it to us. Turn this movie around. Turn this boat around. The time travel is absolute nonsense, especially in screenwriting. I am a strong believer that time travel is almost never done well, or when it's trying to be done seriously, it is a huge pitfall because time travel, by its very essence, is nonsense. Primer, for time travel plot device fans out there, Primer is always going to be king for me. If you are a fan of time travel and never seen Primer, watch Primer right now. Get a notepad out and have a ball with that film.
That's cool.
Oh, man. I love Primer. So normally
Cloud Atlas, huh?
You're bringing the heat. Oh, I can't keep up. Yeah, Cloud Atlas. How many times do you think we've mentioned Cloud Atlas?
I think
Cloud Atlas is going to get a special of its own.
I think it's been mentioned almost half the podcast.
Yeah, I was listening to an old one recently, and I think we mentioned it again over there.
It's because nobody likes it, and we do.
Yeah, it's true.
Anyway, sorry.
No, but normally, my point in bringing this all up is normally I do not find value in criticizing it because if a film tries to be serious, it's definitely not going to work. And most films understand that they're not going to live up to those expectations, so they make a joke out of it. They de-emphasize it. This film falls into the pitfall of trying to de-emphasize it, trying to have very fast hand movements around the tech, the science of time travel, but the plot is constantly bringing it back up. The science of it is the plot, and the fact that we get early on in the film Ryan Reynolds constantly brushing across and brushing by concepts that characters are bringing up in the film, I was bringing up in my head as far as a viewing audience. Concepts like meeting yourself and changing the past. It's all brushed across so casually And it's so diminishing to say, don't worry about this, audience. However, the main plot is constantly getting knee-deep into the specifics of how the time travel works, to the point that there's professor characters and they're trying to be highbrow about it, and I say, you can't have both.
No, you can't.
Cannot have both.
You can't split the baby. You got to pick one. Pick a
can't-
lane. You got to
Yes.
pick a lane.
It's the fact that even in let's look at just the film itself. I'll take my bias aside for my preference of time travel and screenwriting. I'm telling you, the fact that the film spends time saying, don't worry about this, audience, and then the main through line is getting very, very deep into the specifics of how the science is working, it all doesn't work as a result and really has shot this film. Anything I would say about the emotional beats about this, and I really stress that as for a dumb blockbuster, it did really have some good emotional beats, it is sunk because of this mishandling of what it thinks it's fast and loose with, but then it really just gets down in the weeds with.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, of course, absolutely.
Yeah. Bottom line, I would say I am as lukewarm as can be. The film has heart and emotional through line to the plot, and certainly there is a razzle-dazzle in that. Razzle-dazzle is maybe something I would like to dive in more of why I think it's just used as manipulation for the audience in films.
Especially Sean Levy films, it seems.
Yeah, for real. But I would say the wrapping around that is so inconsequential, so blockbuster, so wannabe blockbuster, because this is a Netflix release. And the writing itself just makes me turn my brain off. I say that is toxic for the emotional beats, as good as they were. If my brain's off by that point, I'm not absorbing it, and it's not hitting like it should. We're going to go ahead and give The Adam Project a 51.
51.
Just over the curve.
Yeah, I was going to say, I might be straight 50 on this.
Yeah, I know. I was tempted to give straight 50. If anything, to kind of set what a modern-day blockbuster is. What I would consider just like, this is middle of the road. But it does have a tiny bit of merit.
Okay, very good, yeah. And 51, yeah, okay. It's, I guess, unsurprising, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's good that, we had a good one and Fresh kind of be a positive
Yeah, and enjoyable, stylized. This certainly had style as well,
But yeah, 51 for the Adam Project. Mm-hmm. And, hey, the kid acting, it's okay. Sorry, Walker, we're kind of beating you up a little bit. I'm sure you were better than Mark Ruffalo, though.
Tom's got a vendetta with Ruffalo.
No,
so.
I just don't like him at all. Okay. But okay, so 51 for the Adam Project, Vin. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or we're going to roll credits here on this one?
No, I think. I guess if we could end with the concept of Tom. What do you think is my best picture?
Oh my
pick?
gosh, that's right. Okay, so I think. It's going to be...
I'll give you two. I'll give you what I think is going to win, and I think what I want to win.
Okay, what you want to win might be Belfast.
Okay, all right.
What you think is going to win? I don't know. I just think it's going to come down to either Dune. I hope it's either Dune or Licorice Pizza.
Okay.
And I think you think it's going to be one of those.
I think it's going to be Belfast.
Oh, really?
Yes. I want it to be Dune. You actually had it backwards.
Oh, okay.
Still, obviously represent the high ratings that I've given both of those films. Yeah. But yeah, I would say...
I love Dune. Personally, that would be great if Dune won. I would love it if Dune won.
Oh, my...
And for Denny to get it, too.
A dream come true. Sci-fi in the Oscars, it's like...
Yeah, and get Denny on the board for that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, not that we care about the Oscars. Here we are talking about it.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so...
And I think,
But you think Belfast, really?
I hope Belfast. I think Belfast is just so much of a personal story for Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah, but think about the Oscars.
Yeah.
Think about the Oscars.
The nightmare, actually, I'll add a third to that. The nightmare choice is either Power of the Dog or Drive My Car.
So I was going to say, I think more realistically, it might be between those two.
Yeah. Which is a shame.
I would assume Power of the Dog.
Yeah.
And then other than that, because I don't think it's going to be Licorice Pizza. But
it'd be cool.
I kind of, honestly, if Dune doesn't get it, I would love if Licorice Pizza got it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we'll see. The question is, do we really care? No,
I don't.
I
definitely don't.
Yeah, I'll care if
I'll maybe gamble on
Nightmare
it.
Alley gets it. Something like that. That would be ridiculous. Let's give it another one to that guy, really.
Tom's secondary vendetta with Guillermo del Toro.
No, but I mean, still, as much as we hate, it's fun to at least talk about. And kind of shit on
bottom
a little
line,
bit.
it's news, and it is the news for a lot of people. And if anything, I mean, I
in the
watched
culture.
a lot of movies because they were nominated that I normally wouldn't, and that is good for the podcast, good for talking about it, and good for toning in what I even like.
Yeah,
you know?
and it's what the daily ratings are all about. What we're trying to build here. We're hoping to do this for years. For everybody listening, we really do. We want to do this for years and eventually build up. In not too long of a time, we're going to have 1,000 films on the site. We're going to have a decent amount of audio to those. And,
Big boy.
And we want to grow and grow and grow, and maybe one day, who knows? Maybe be a little bit bigger, far-reaching, get a team behind us, and be something important. We think there's a lot of bad, just unrepresentative information out there with Rotten Tomatoes, especially with an IMDb. It's just like, Rotten Tomatoes is getting picked up by everything, most of all because they're owned by people like NBC Studios and these major corporations, so you're going to see them propping up. And it's really not doing a good justice for people's, they're not good ratings.
Yeah, half of these movies were 90s on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous.
And what direction does that give you as a watching audience? There's no judgment to style, to tone, to genre.
It seems like they're just trying to pump out numbers and be part of the culture and pump out numbers and pump out numbers. Where we're trying to be like people who actually enjoy film. You actually enjoy film, and these are ratings for people who are interested actually for real answers when it comes to that kind of stuff. Yep. And for those of people who just want to stop by once in a while and check out a film, don't listen to the whole podcast.
Sure.
That's why we have the time codes on the podcast and everything like that, the website, and that's what we love about it. But Vin, we thank you for stopping by. Folks at home, we're going to run through this one more time. We have West Side Story, the 1961, at an 81%. The new West Side Story by Steven Spielberg with a 65. We have CODA with a 61. Fresh with a 68, and The Adam Project with a 51%. We thank you so much of you for listening. We thank you for a producer of this show, and we'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating or tell a friend about us. If you're wondering if a film is worth a watch, or if you'd just like to see more movie ratings from Vince, be sure to stop by thedailyratings.com, where we have our ever-expanding catalog of films. Also, if you found value in the podcast or our site, become a producer and go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. You can donate whatever amount of value you feel you received from us. You'll get a producer mention on the next podcast episode, too. We're looking to build this into something large and great, but also be independent from those corporate sponsors. So we greatly appreciate any support from you all. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.